Go for it.
Good morning, everyone. This week has, a couple of weeks ago, was National Eating Disorder Awareness Week. And because of our Texas blizzard, we couldn't do it then. And then we had to reschedule an intensive the following week, which was last week. So this week, we have spent the week looking and honoring the National Eating Disorder Awareness organization and making this the week that we have celebrated for them. And this year's theme was Everybody Has a Seat at the Table. Come as you are. And so this week we have talked about eating disorders in adults. We've talked about eating disorders with men. We've talked, every morning at 10 o'clock, we've talked about some facet of an eating disorder. And so today I'm talking about children and adolescents, and because I know that is something that really puzzles parents and what to do, and so we're going to just talk briefly about that. And I've asked my little friend Misty to join me, and she's going to start with a little song. This little song has a lot of meaning about children's bodies and their minds. And my little girl, Christy, who is my little girl, I guess, is now 54 years old. But when she was 3, she's got to sing the little girl's part as a special in church. So that's another reason this little song has always been very special to my heart. But it really fits in with what we're talking about today. So Misty's going to just sing you a verse of that song. And then we'll go into talking about children and teens with eating disorders.
I might have to turn it just a little, but I want you to stay in this.
All right.
I learned this last night, so. All right. It's so sweet. We'll get in there, Minnie.
Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. That's why God made you special. You're the only one of your kind. He gave you a body and a bright, healthy mind. He has a special purpose that He wants you to find. So He made you something special. You're the only one of your kind.
All right, thanks, Misty. And I think that little chorus is very powerful in that.
Hold on, let us get situated before she gets started here. Can you, that too close?
I'm not in the center.
Hold on. Technical difficulties.
Okay,
Is
there
that
we
all
go.
right? Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
I can see better. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit about eating disorders with children and teens, and majority of eating disorders do start in early teens. Years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a survey done with grade school children, not junior high or high school, but grade school children, to list the top 5 things that they have the most fear of. And it was, one of them was about parents getting a divorce, one was snakes, one was spiders, one was jumping off, falling off of a cliff, that type of all of the things that children could have fear of. It was fear of being overweight. And these are grade school children. And I believe the reason why is that children who are overweight get teased. Children are cruel to each other, let's face it. They can look very angelic and then be terrible to their peers. And so kids make fun of each other, and they really target overweight children. I know I was one. By the time I was in the first grade, I weighed 139 pounds, and I was always an overweight child, preteen, teenager, young adult, till I got up to 287 pounds. So I know the pain of being made fun of. And children make fun of children about other things, big ears, the way the hair's cut. I mean, all of those things. But what they fear the most is being fat, being called fat. And I know even kids in at school now, and around that I hear kids talking, I don't even know if they realize what they're saying, but they'll call each other fag or gay or fat, and those are, those can be fighting words for kids. So I wanted to talk about how eating disorders in children and teens, they start like any disease. They have a starting place, and this is where parents need to be very aware of what's going on with your child. Sometimes parents will see maybe an adolescent or now this eating disorders are going down into younger and younger and younger children. And one of the things that, maybe a parent will notice a child losing weight or not eating, and they will say things like, well, she'll grow out of it or he'll grow out of it. Don't count on that. Please do not count on that. Pay attention. Pay attention to what your children are doing with food. And, I want to just read you just a few symptoms, signs and symptoms to look for early on. This is true for boys and girls too. And, like we've been talking about, 1 out of 3 people with eating disorders, 1 out of 3 are men or boys. So it's not just a women's disease anymore, which it never has been. Men or boys have just never been encouraged to seek treatment. So these are the signs and symptoms of a development of an eating disorder. If your child begins to read diet books or want to buy diet books with their allowance, beware. Evidence of, kids have access on the computers to pro-anorexia and eating disorder websites that will teach children how to have an eating disorder. I was on the Dr. Oz show one of the times that I've had the privilege of being on Dr. Oz show quite a few times, and one of the times they had the producer and the author of one of those pro-anorexia websites. He was on the show, and he was the most arrogant, and he took great pride in teaching young kids or young people how to become bulimic and to become anorexic. Be aware of what your children are doing on the internet. And then they start that dieting behavior, and then all of a sudden, this is a really, really big one, all of a sudden, your teenager or your preteen has decided to become vegetarian. Most of the time, kids don't like vegetables, but all of a sudden, they have decided that they want to be vegetarian. That's a big key. And then they can become, increase being a picky eater. Especially eating only healthy foods. If they start getting obsessed with wanting an all healthy food and complaining about the food that you cook and how you cook it, and oh, mother, that's too much oil. The weight might not have even changed by now, but this is the behavior that precedes getting into an eating disorder, and then after you're into it. And so another thing that is really you need to watch, because for bulimia, is if they go to the bathroom right after they eat, is a big one. And notice that. And a lot of times parents notice it, and then they think, well, maybe I don't know whether to say anything or not. Your children are going to hear you. You're the only one that they're really going to hear, and they may not like it. And on the other hand, they want you to say something. We've treated many adolescents. We can take them 18 and up. But in the early days, we did treat adolescents. And so many of our anorexics would come and say, I lost weight and no one said anything. And my family never said anything. And so I lost more weight and no one ever noticed it. And then finally, maybe a school nurse would notice it. If you notice as a parent that your child is losing weight, you need to pay attention to that. Not the school, not anyone. You need to pay attention. This is part of, and I'm going to get into some solutions here in a minute, but that another thing is taking multiple showers a day. A lot of bulimics purge in the shower. And then if you notice that your showers are stopping up, your commodes are stopping up, beware, there may be a bulimic in your house, and it could be your teenager. So notice, especially right after eating, if they've just eaten a meal and they need to go take a shower, pay attention to that. And then notice if they have unusual number of stomach problems, like flu episodes, and they'll say things like, "Oh, my stomach hurts, I can't go to school." Pay attention to that. And then skipping meals is a big one. Well, I've got homework, I can't eat, or I'll just take my plate and eat in my room. Those are signs. And then when you see large amounts of food missing, there's not a food thief in the neighborhood. That could be your child binging on excess food. Those are indicators. And then the act now, this is something that you need to act on, when you see this happening. Fasting and skipping meals regularly. When you get a child that is deciding, and this is how they usually start, well, I'm just going to fast. If they're, if they go to church and they've heard about fasting, they will use religious purposes for fasting. Or they'll say things like, "Oh, I don't want to eat meat, it is so unclean," and all that. That is, that's an indicator. And then refusing to eat with the family. Take big notice of that. And then in girls, notice if they have skipped a period or two, they're in trouble with anorexia. Pay attention. And I know parents are busy, but our children are the best commodity that we've ever had. That they're treasures to us, and we need to know what they're doing. And I don't mean in a helicopter way and controlling. I mean pay attention. Another is any binge episodes. Overweight children, and majority of any eating disorder, the person I've ever treated, anorexic, bulimic, compulsive overeaters, every one of them started their eating disorder with the thoughts that they were overweight, whether they were or not, the thought that they were overweight. And they usually, girls and boys too, will usually judge themselves by, seeing magazines of, these bodybuilders or whatever. They will judge themselves by something that they cannot ever measure up to. So if your daughter has missed back to this binge eating episodes, pay attention. If your child is, maybe you cook 3 meals a day and, you have great habits there, and and you feed your family appropriately. If you have a child that has eaten a meal and gets up from the table 5 or 10 minutes later, wants something to eat, in particular maybe they want something sweet, that's an indicator. If they're overeating, it's not what they're eating, there's something going on the inside. And this is where you need to start having a conversation with your child. Talk about feelings. Let them know feelings are all right, because that habit of reaching out to the food to fill up a hole in the soul, that vacant building, starts at a very young age, and that becomes a habit, and then that can become obese. Can be weight gain, and it can be obesity, and then in their adult life be morbidly obese. I was somewhere. I was in a Lowe's, Home Depot the other day, And there was these two obese parents, very obese, probably 300 pounds, both of them. And then they had a child about 4 years of age, and he was a normal weight. And I had a sickness in my stomach and in my heart. And what I thought and what I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, by the time that child is 7 or 8, he's going to start picking up their eating habits. And by the time he's a preteen, he won't be 300, but he'll either turn one way or the other. He'll either turn and not want to eat and be like his parents, or he'll join them. And folks, whether we like it or not, our kids don't hear a lot that we say. What they pay attention to is how we act and what we display in front of them. And so one of those things is good eating habits. And having that food is just for nourishment. It is not for entertainment. It is not for, like for instance, I know kids like birthdays and all of that. Don't put the focus on the food. Put the focus on the fun activities they're going to have. And when you go to those birthday parties, you can tell the future eating disorder kids, because there'll be some kids that will eat, maybe half a cookie, a little bit of ice cream, or a little bit of that cake, and then they'll be off playing. And then there'll be some that will, won't want it at all. No, I'd rather have fruit or something. And then there'll be some, at least one, that will linger with the food, want more of it, go out, play for a while, come back and check, see if the food's still there. And they will be setting themselves, and parents will be setting them up for later on for compulsive eaters and to be morbidly obese. So another thing you have to really watch is any purging episodes. I don't care if it's one time that they purge, take notice of it. And then discover any diet pills or laxatives. Now this goes back to parents. I practiced an eating disorder inside my home all of my kids' lives. When I went to treatment in 1985, my youngest daughter was a senior in high school, and the rest of them were grown and gone. So my children lived with an eating disorder person all their life, from morbid obesity to always dieting to bulimia. And what I would have is massive amounts of laxatives and diet pills. And as my girls began to be teenagers, and we've talked about it in their adult lives, looking back, there was 3 of us practicing eating disorders in the house at the same time. I would never talk to them about it. I would just say things like, stay out of my bathroom, stay out of my stuff. And they knew my stuff was diet pills, diuretics, and laxatives. And so, when I went to treatment, my middle daughter, we knew that she had some weight loss, but she was thin like her dad, and we didn't know what anorexia was. And we knew she was dabbling in drugs and alcohol. She was in her early 20s, and we just contributed her weight loss to drugs and alcohol and doing a lot of sports and all. But she was getting thinner and thinner. But I was so into myself and my own eating disorder, I hardly noticed anyone else. So when I went to treatment, long story short, they sent her to the treatment center where I was. She's 5'10" and came in weighing 97 pounds. And they immediately diagnosed her as an anorexic. Now, had I been not so focused on my own eating disorder, I would have, and if I'd had more knowledge, we didn't know. I mean, I'm not, taking up for myself, but I did not know what bulimia and anorexia was. I was practicing bulimia. She was starving herself. So it took my daughter a long time before she wanted help. She left, they had to discharge her from the treatment center because she wanted no help. She did not want to gain an ounce of weight. So what I want to say is she's, in her 50s. She's been a therapist over 30 years. She's, works here at Shades of Hope. She's worked with adolescents for over 20 years, bless her heart. And so what I'm saying is she's in good recovery. But she had to recognize it and admit that she had a disease before she could ever treat it. So she's taught me a lot about anorexia and that I didn't know, and I was living in a home with one. And while I was practicing overeating and bulimia, I didn't have any eyes except for myself. So kids watch parents. Don't you think? Do not ever think that they don't. And what kids don't want to be is overweight. And when they have overweight parents, they will make definite decisions. I'm not going to be like that. Or they will make decisions about, I'm going to eat as much as Dad does, So what we do, this is play on words, but what parents do, the behavior we display in front of our children, that's what they watch. It weighs a lot. Our opinions about and our behavior. When a young man or kid watches, let's say, their dad, get angry and upset and then later go and binge out on ice cream or cookies or whatever, that kid watches that, and that's how he learns how to deal with feelings. Or a young girl, a child, a little girl, when she watches her mother standing in front of the mirror, a normal weight, and talks about, and even asks the child, honey, do you think I'm overweight? Does mommy need to lose weight? That gets stuck in that child's head, and that child gets to feeling, regardless of what size she is, she's never going to be good enough. And then if the father talks about the mother's weight, the child notices that. And if a father teases a young girl, particularly a young girl, about her body and her development, the Carters, Carpenters. I talk about her a lot. Karen Carpenter was severe anorexic. And when her body started, and she wasn't overweight by any stretch of the imagination, but she didn't want to look like her mother. And when her body started developing, and she had some little breasts, and I had to start wearing like a training bra, her dad teased her about it and made fun of her. That is deadly for a child, for a father to do that to a young girl's body. And what that young girl decided is it wasn't okay to have a female body. And she started starving herself. Okay, so another thing is excessive exercise. And more than an hour a day. Now, when you have athletes, people think, athletes are just naturally healthy, and that exercise that they do is part of their, schedule for being an athlete. No, it's not. We've treated many athletes here, and some of them have, we treated some that were on their way to the Olympics. We've treated some that the universities, colleges have paid for their treatment so they could get back out there on the track and win those first places. And so don't just think if your child's an athlete that all that excessive exercise is just to develop their athletic abilities. It can be, but to a point, if they're over-exercising hours upon hours upon hours, be aware of that. That's not just about being an athlete. And that fear of losing that scholarship or not getting the scholarship or not being the best all plays into that. And we've treated many of them, and many of them have had to give up being the stars, the athletic stars, because it was literally taking their lives away. So another thing is really persistent and unrelenting refusal to return to normal eating. When you've got a kid that refuses to eat at the table with you, when you have a kid that will not follow any directions from the parents about eating, keep in mind that's but a symptom. The eating disorders signs and symptoms are just the symptoms of an underlying, more underlying causes and conditions. There's something going on that's pushing the eating disorder. And so, adolescents will stomp their foot and demand their way and not want to eat with you. That is, pay attention to that. And then when they get into, this is a dangerous sign, when they start refusing to allow others to fix their food, to prepare their food, and heaven forbid, to prepare their plate, to serve them. When they're get into an eating disorder, they don't want anyone touching their food, serving their plate, or a lot of times they will start cooking their own food. Another thing to watch for, when they take such an interest in feeding others. When adolescents or eating disorder person, when they start wanting to learn to cook and they start getting into wanting to fix these fabulous meals for the family, and then watch them, they won't eat. They get their good feelings about feeding other people. That's another thing to watch for. Extreme calorie counting or portion control, weighing and measuring food amounts. Now here at Shades, we do teach people here, this is treatment. And so we do teach them how to weigh and measure their food, because many of them do not know what a healthy serving of anything is. And for your compulsive overeaters, your binge eaters, they may have to continue to do that for a while. But your anorexics, I'll tell you, in bulimics, there is a computer inside their head. They know the calorie count of every food, how much they can eat and not gain weight, and what are empty calories. And so they know more about food than most parents ever thought about it. And then when they start, one of the last things is when they stop, when they refuse to eat with their friends. For instance, after a ball game, everyone maybe goes out to eat and hamburgers or whatever, and they'll say, "Well, no, I ate before the game. I'll just have a glass of water or a cup of coffee." Start noticing the caffeine intake, because that is a real early symptom and middle symptom and later symptom of an eating disorder is drinking a lot of caffeine, because it can serve as diuretic purposes and laxative purposes. And then they have the feeling it gives them energy. For an anorexic, it'll give them energy, and then they'll think, that'll give me energy and I won't have to eat. Also watch with anorexics particularly, in bulimics. Anorexics and bulimics a lot of times will chew a lot of gum. We've had them bring in sacks of gum that they had, stashed in their car, and also hard candy. Notice, because like I said, these kids are sharp, they're smart, and so an anorexic will think, well, I need some energy, but I don't want to eat. So they'll suck on little pieces of not sugar-free candy, but sugar, so they can get a little bit of energy off of it. We've had them to bring in sacks of hard candy, and, they weigh 65 pounds or 70 pounds. Now, that will be all they're eating, but they do that for the purpose of getting some energy. Okay, so that gives you some signs and symptoms. I will say that eating disorders can start very young, and the quicker you catch it, the better. And then what I said is the number one symptom is the fear of getting overweight. And then also feelings of helplessness. Now, a lot of times in the eating disorder field, we've been taught, I've said in lots of lectures, and I know some of this is fact, is the reason that we treat the whole family system. Because sometimes the eating disorder person will be what we call the symptom barrier. they're the ones that's carrying the feelings for the whole family. And that's why the whole family needs to be treated. Now, I will tell you, families do not cause eating disorders. They can't cure them. They can't control them. I say that, but in children and adolescents, you must take a lead in their recovery and in their treatment. So with that, the question, why do they have an eating disorder, that it doesn't really make any difference. There's really no answer to why. We can say a lot of reasons that they could have an eating disorder, but that is not going to keep them from having an eating disorder. And so why doesn't matter. What matters is listening to your children, notice their feelings, feed them appropriate. Don't keep anything in the house. Now, I'm going to back up here. If you really want to produce a kid with an eating disorder, restrict their food, and which I did. I was rigid about my children's food and wouldn't keep anything sweet in there. And I would keep locks on the freezers, and then, of course, I would get into them and eat the stuff. So it's about don't keep a lot let them just have access to all kinds of sweets and everything all the time. Let that be something fun to have, because I'll tell you, sugar is not in a food group. It has no nutrients. All it is a feel good, and it's a filler, and it tastes good. But be aware of that. But don't be real strict with it. The parents have to be in charge of that. And catch it early. So, like I said early on, and we still see some of this, that parents are not to blame, but they can absolutely contribute to an eating disorder. But I will tell you, there is a new theory out, and I believe it works. And this is the book. It's called Help Your Teenager Beat an Eating Disorder. Help Your Teenager Beat an Eating Disorder. And what this is about is the parents get engaged, because a lot of times an eating disorder child is saying, do you see me? Do you see me? Do you know who am I? Do you see me? And so this theory is that, the family, the couple, must get involved in the eating disorder recovery process. Now, you try to do that, and, dads will say, well, I've got to work, and the mother says, I have to work. Well, I have this. Well, I have that. I've got other kids. I've got this, and I've got that. My daughter and I, Kim, I can't remember how we came across this book, but we did, and I read it, and it tells you step by step, really, for parents, how to best help their children, along with a good dietitian and with professionals, with eating disorder professionals. And so we developed a weekend, and that where we, because the child, early adolescence, they wasn't severe enough to go into inpatient, but they were on the verge of having to go to inpatient treatment. And what we did, I'll tell you about this one family that we treated. We brought them in on a Thursday, had them Thursday, Friday, Saturday, till noon on Sunday. And we taught this process to those couples, and we would only take one family at a time, and the mom and dad both had to come. I'm going to tell you about this one young girl. She was an athlete, and she was young, and she had a lot of potential about her athletic abilities, but she had been asked to not be on this certain team that she was on. I'm not going to give you that. I don't want to break her confidentiality at all. And we've treated several of them, but this is one in particular. And so we brought them in. The couple agreed to come because they were pretty desperate to help her. And we brought them in, and it was amazing. what happens is the eating disorder takes over the family. Now, it's not the kid doing it, it's the eating disorder. And we got to see it play out in living form. And then we would do like a family sculpt. We would have them act out what they were doing. For instance, going to dinner and putting the child or the young adolescent in charge of finding a place to eat. Well, my Lord God Almighty, they came back in 2 hours and they were so frustrated, and the mother was crying, the dad was mad, and the anorexic walked in, looked like she had owned the world because they kept listening to her every time they would try to find a place to eat. Nope, 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 nope. That was a teaching moment for us. The eating disorder had taken over the family. That's just one small thing. But I want to tell you that that mom and dad, as busy as they were, what this theory is get other family members engaged in helping. And what this theory is the family take charge of the eating. Now, that's contrary to what we've been taught in some ways, but I like this particularly for young adolescents, young kids, because the deal is they don't feel like they're seen, they don't feel like they're noticed, they don't feel like they have a voice. And I'll tell you, that young girl is in college on a scholarship for her particular and, we hear from them all the time, and we hear from others. She's not the only one. So with that, I want to open it up to any questions, comments. I've just barely touched on it, but any questions, comments that I might could help with.
First of all, I will say a few people really love your glasses.
Oh, Misty
They
gave
love your
these.
fabulous glasses.
Misty gave these to me. She's always given me little surprises.
Okay, so Natalie, our friend from across the pond, she says, what happens if the divorced parents aren't in agreement that the child is having an eating disorder, is eating disordered?
Okay. All right. If the parents don't agree, and what that's doing is putting that child right in the middle of that coupleship. And this is psychological stuff, but actually that's the vehicle that the eating disorder plays. It will get the parents together talking about the child, even if they're not in agreement. So if they're not in agreement, the one that realizes and recognizes that there is an eating disorder, your voice has got to be stronger. That parent has got to be stronger because it doesn't matter whether the other parent agrees or not. And it's a very delicate situation, because if that is a split and that child is spending part-time here and part-time there, when they're with one parent, they may not show any signs and symptoms of an eating disorder. They can eat within normal. They get with the other one, and they do. That is the hard part, the psychological part of the eating disorder. So someone has to take a stand, and those parents, what I would say, those parents need some help, whether they're married or not. Because they're going to be parenting forever. And but if only one sees the child has an eating disorder, take a stand. It doesn't matter whether the other parent agrees or not. That's my opinion. Hope it helps.
Let me see. Is there anybody that will be willing to get on the camera with us? Anybody that has a question? We want to try this out. Let me see. Kimberly said at the beginning when you started, I'm doing my final essay assignment on eating disorders in adolescents. Thank you for doing this subject. It's Kimberly, so I don't know how to say the last name.
Yeah, she's my friend from Louisiana.
There she is. Here's Kimberly again. Wait. First, let's get this before. Julie Mahoney says, Panos Paris, what I would say, those parents need some help, and what they're married or not, because they're going to be parents forever and only once. ACE the child has an eating disorder type of stand. It doesn't matter whether another parent agrees or not. That's my opinion. Open houses, let me see. Is there anybody that will? I can't understand some of it.
Okay, that is, thanks, Julie. That's absolutely just what I said. It doesn't matter if both don't agree. It'd be like if your child had cancer and one really recognized the symptoms and the other one didn't. It doesn't matter. Get the kid help is the thing.
Kimberly said, what are some types of treatment options for adolescents with eating disorders?
Okay, the treatment options are, of course, get a good physical, and hopefully their primary care physician will be able to recognize eating disorders. Sadly, a lot of physicians don't, but get a good physical first and foremost, and then get a good eating disorder therapist. And start with a good eating disorder therapist, but bring the family in, bring the parents in. This is not just about the child. Now, if they were 21 years old, we'd be telling a different story, but bring the parents in. And then I would really support anyone that's in the field to read this book and use some of these suggestions in here, because what the eating disorder young adolescent and children, it's all about, do you see me? Do you see what I'm doing? And they don't know, that's subconscious. They don't really know that. But invariably, what you find in family systems is one dominating parent, which a lot of times, whether we like it or not, it's the mother. And then there's one ineffective parent, and that means a father that is either alcoholic, work addict, a minister, someone that takes them out of the home a lot. So the parenting is really left up to the mom. So it's about getting that father back in there, and the coupleship take charge of not only the child, but take charge of the eating disorder treatment process, but get a good assessment done. And if you can catch it early, maybe they won't have to go to inpatient, because when you go to inpatient treatment, they're separated from the family, and they may have to do that. I don't know. So, but start with a good physical, a good eating disorder therapist, and one that will also see the coupleship, and then get a good assessment of where you are with the eating disorder. And if it's early stages, good. Work with that. And I would really encourage any professional to read this book, Help Your Teenager Beat an Eating Disorder, because it will give you help on how to guide your clients and the family members, and make it a family project, really. It's not really a project. It's about how parents can help a child refeed themselves. And it's not easy. It's not easy, and it takes time. Hope that will help. All right, anyone else?
Anyone else? And if anyone wants to get on camera here.
One of the things I want to
Put you on. Go ahead.
say too, and without everybody wanting me to send you a copy, you can Google this and find it. A lot of people probably have it. It's that this is for therapists. Do you recognize this?
Put it on there.
I'm sure it's called Affirmations for Growth. These are affirmations that children need to hear at different stages of their lives. And it's just like this little song that Misty just sang. From birth to up to 1 year, what a child needs to hear over and over. You're the only you. You are special. You're safe here. You have every right to be here. You're going to be taken care of. Your needs are okay with me. I'll tell you, babies can sense if they're a hindrance to you. And I like to hold you. A baby can sense when you're so nervous and in a hurry that you can't even take time to hold them. So I'm not going to go through all this, but these are stages. stages that children, ages that they go through, and what they need to hear in form of affirmations from their parents. I'll tell you, I came across this, found it while my children were still at home. It was before I went to treatment. We were all sick, but we still used it. But I had found a lot of mental and emotional help from 1968 to 85. So I was healthier in a lot of ways. And so I put this on our refrigerator and taught it to the kids, and they made it real fun. Like, my son would come in and he'd look at that and he said, okay, he had 3 sisters. He said, okay, sisters, I'm feeling 3 years old today. And so he would want his sisters to tell him all these affirmations. And so they made it a fun thing. But it really goes into the heart, into the brain of a child. So this is something that kids need to hear, and you might be able to say it without just using this chart, So
I'll post it on your page
okay,
after this.
Good.
Okay,
Alright.
there's 2 more things. Julie Mahoney says, Tennie, what I said is how blessed we are to have someone like you sharing your knowledge about a rampant problem with the public at no charge.
Oh, well, thanks, Julie. Yeah, this is my life's work. It's a mission. It is a passion. And, I almost died from an eating disorder that I didn't even know what it was. And my daughter could have died from anorexia. So this is really it's close to home with me. And when I found recovery, I wanted to help others find recovery. And there's good therapists. When I went to treatment, there were very few eating disorder units in the United States. Now, it's kind of like, when I went into the alcoholism field, there was very few drug and alcohol treatment centers. Now, there's one on every corner. And it's pretty much getting like that with eating disorder clients. Be very careful in selection of where you send your child for if they have to have inpatient treatment. Do your homework, find out, and I'm not being critical, and I'm being critical about some treatment centers are owned by large corporations. They do have lots of money, but they don't have sometimes the real passion. I don't know. Be careful. Just make sure that the people who are working there are not just there for a paycheck. This type of work has to come from the heart. It can't come from the head. And there's a combination. You got to know what you're doing, but also have that passion and compassion from the heart. Mothers have gotten a bad rap. I always get tickled. For little girls particularly, they learn how to be women by watching their mothers, but they get their good feelings from their dad. And a lot of times dads, whether it's a girl or a boy, dads get a hall pass. I mean, I don't care what a dad does or doesn't do. Those girls and little boys too, but particularly girls, just love the dads, love the dads, love the dads. And if you can get a father involved in helping with the treatment of the eating disorder, it will work. It will come closer to having a bigger effect than if it's just the mother and the daughter, or the mother and the son, the mother, the mother, the mother, the mother, the mother, the mother. We jokingly say if it's not one thing, it's your mother. Get off your mother's back and look around and see what's missing with your father. There is little girls, particularly anorexics or any eating disorder, they have that father hunger. They long for fathering. Being a sperm donor does not make men a father. It's fathering. It's being with kids. It's being part of their... And there are some good fathers. I'm not putting down all fathers. There's some great fathers out there. There's great fathers out there. And be involved in your children's lives. Don't leave it up to your wife or to your mother, and to their mother. So...
One more. Kimberly says, I'm doing my senior thesis experimental study on affirmations and its effects on well-being. Y'all made me a true believer in affirmations. I still do them with my roommate.
Oh, that is wonderful because affirmations work. That's the number one thing. If we could get people doing affirmations, you know what? They work. And what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? It is about, and I'm seeing this, and it is about rewiring the brain. The brain is the most magnificent computer that there is. And, garbage in, garbage out. Affirmations, what we ask the clients to do, and I'm going to have Misty read this in just a minute. Misty, why don't you read that, and then I'll talk about it.
Okay, it's Miranda.
Miranda.
And she's replying to Kimberly. She said, after another round at Shades pretty recently, those 50 affirmations we had to write and read every day have been a true lifesaver. Rewiring the brain is so hard and it takes time. Affirmations are so helpful, but you have to keep it up. Just did mine. Take care. Oh, and I remember your name in the fishbowl. She was replying to Kimberly.
So they work, and that's Miranda's proof positive that they work. And we recommend that the clients, and this comes from Helen Hayes. Is that it? No. I can't remember the author or the woman that developed this, but it's about writing 50 short affirmations. Whether they are true or not, write them in present tense, like I am healthy, I am beautiful, I am gorgeous, I am worthy, I am. 50, nothing negative at all, 50 positive affirmations. And then look in the mirror, in the dark part, dark part of your eye, 5 times a day. Louise Hayes, thanks Miranda, it's Louise Hayes. And 5 times a day, and say those affirmations to yourself. Like Kimberly wrote, I love my body. Say that whether you believe it. Yes, you do. And say it. If you'll do those 50 affirmations every day in front of the mirror, 5 times a day, at least for 2 weeks, there's going to be a shift in your brain. And that's not going to take long. That will not take long. When I started doing them, I wrote mine on a piece of paper, notebook, just out of a legal pad. And I had a compact, and I took the powder out. It had a little mirror on it. And I folded those affirmations up and put them inside of that compact. So wherever I was, I could just pull that out and look at it and read them. And, if I was sitting in a doctor's office or wherever waiting on an appointment, waiting to get my nails done or getting my feet done, I'd sit and read that. People don't care what you're doing, and I'd just look in that compact and read those affirmations to myself. And I will tell you, if you will do that, that brain chemistry is going to begin to change. It's powerful.
Can I add real quick that there's an app, too, on our phones. There's such good tools. There's an I Am app that has affirmations. And all throughout the day, I get affirmations on my phone. That's just another extra thing.
Yeah.
It's really neat. And they always come when I need them.
Yeah.
Natalie.
And another thing on writing those that's a great tool because
throughout the day.
Throughout the day. But the main thing, too, about writing those affirmations, don't type them. Do not type them. Write them. Because that using your hand to pen to paper is going to, using those small motor skills will help wake the brain up. It all works together. All right.
Okay, Natalie says, is there a strong correlation between being a survivor of abuse and having an eating disorder?
Yes. Natalie asked if there is a strong correlation between a survivor of abuse and eating disorders. Yes, we used to say that the percentage was pretty high. I do think that, what I see, and I don't know statistically across the board what it is, but for people that we treat, probably 35%, which that's pretty high, has some form, and maybe even higher, some form of childhood abuse. And the childhood abuse is sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental and emotional abuse, intellectual abuse, and spiritual or religious abuse. So there's 5 different forms of childhood abuse. And I do believe that there is a correlation to eating disorders. So, all righty.
That's it.
Kenzie McCarty. Tell me who Kenzie is.
Is she a relative?
All righty. I'm wondering if...
There, Kenzie?
All right. Okay, so we're going to...
Yeah, I think we got it all.
Okay. So we've been doing this all week. Today is Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. We're going to end tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and we're going to be talking about when do you know that when you're in recovery? You know, we've been talking a lot about the problem. What does recovery look like across the board for any person with any eating disorder? What does recovery look like? So I hope you'll join us tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be a video.
Okay.
You'll let them know. It's going to be a video. It's not going to be Facebook Live because she's going to be on her way to St. Louis.
Yep,
To see Spencer.
I'm going to St. Louis to see my little grandson Spencer play football. They're playing fall ball in the spring. There'll be snow baked up, but anyway, we're excited to get to go see Spencer. And so I've already videoed tomorrow's talk, but it'll be about how do you really know when you are in recovery. And I will tell you, it's ongoing, and you know, it's progress, not perfection. So much for eating disorders. What we look for is a little bit of progress. It is different. There's a lot of similarities with eating disorders and drug and alcohol use and abuse, but there's differences too. And you know, well, like you've heard me say a lot, drugs and alcohol, you put that sucker, it's like a tiger. You put it in a cage and you never have to take alcohol and drugs out of the cage ever to live. Food, it's different. You put the tiger in the cage 3 times a day and maybe a snack at night. You take that tiger out and you walk the tiger around and feed that sucker and then try to get him back in the cage. You know, that's just an analogy of what it's like to start refeeding yourself or to feed yourself appropriately, and it's ongoing. And the good news about an eating disorder is it serves as an emotional barometer. When you get upset about something or you get into fear or, oh my God, what's going to happen? What happens is the food becomes an emotional barometer, because what usually happens, the thought of eating comes before you overeat, and it's usually, it will tell you when you get that obsession going for a certain food, it's not about that food, it's what's going on in your life. And if you can stop yourself and ask, what am I trying to avoid? What feeling am I trying to cover up? Am I lonely? What is going on with me that I want this particular food? So that's how it serves as an emotional barometer. If you can stop yourself in midstream and say, what's going on here? And if you're hungry, if you feed yourself appropriately, the way that we teach people here, 3 times a day, if you eat at 8 o'clock and at 9:30 you're hungry, that is not physical hunger, that's emotional hunger. And that's about reaching out to another human being, either by phone or text or reaching out to a relationship. Eating disorder people have a hard time having relationships. So when you take the food out of the equation, you don't have a buffer. You've got to deal with people without using the food. So it goes, and that's how teenagers, it's hard to be a teenager. And if they can start using that food and that body size and that not eating and binging and purging and overeating for their feelings, if you can intervene in there and say it's not about what they're doing, it's about the feeling behind it. And start listening to your teenagers. Have a listening for your children. They will tell you if you'll take time to listen to them. So we're going to close with...
well, let me read this real quick.
Okay.
Kimberly says, thank y'all so much for doing this. Y'all brought tears to my eyes. I miss y'all. If I could live at Shades, I so would.
Well, come on back.
Come on.
You get that degree, come work for us.
Yeah. And then she said, I have a request. I would love to listen to a guided meditation from you one day. Yours was the only one that I ever had a breakthrough with. I'm so ADHD, so guided meditations are hard for me. But I'd love to listen to one from you again one day.
Isn't that from you?
I thought it was you.
No, I
think it's her, right?
No, I think it's Misty. I don't do guided meditation. Well, maybe was that
one
from
you've
me?
done before.
I guess
Who was
it
that
was
for?
one.
Probably you, Minnie.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do a guided meditation sometime with this West Texas accent.
Oh, yes. It's so sweet. Hey, let me ask y'all this. So, I mean, she can't do this every day because it wears her out. No. But how about, if y'all really enjoyed this, like every once in a while, do another Facebook Live? Yeah, it was you. She said it was you.
Oh,
there was
good.
one time. So throw up some hearts if y'all want her every once in a while, maybe every other week or so to do a Facebook Live. Come on. Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah. See, they're coming.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And don't forget Zoom on every Wednesday at 10, because we talk about different subjects. And this week I'm going to be talking about love addiction. And addictions come in clusters. And I'll tell you, since we're talking about adolescents can get into love addiction very early. So we're going to be talking about love addiction and how you can get in recovery from your eating disorder. And if you're not already a love addict, sometimes you'll go into love addiction and then sometimes debting and spending. Those are those three clusters. So we're going to be talking Wednesday about is it love or is it an addiction? So we're going to close with Misty singing her little song.
All righty.
I love the words of this little song, and she learned it just this morning. So
Well,
thank y'all.
it's an old one from what? Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
because my little girl, Miss
Let's put it where you can both see you two.
Christy Kay, sang this in
And
a
it's
church.
a Gaither song, right?
Yeah, Bill Gaither, when she was 3 years old, and a little tiny, sweet voice.
All right. I want you to be in this too. So we're going to
you-
get this back. Will you
you
be
lean
in
over.
too?
Okay.
Okay. That's why God made you special. You're the only one of your kind. He gave you a body and a bright, healthy mind. He has a special purpose that He wants you to find. So He made you special. You're the only one of your kind. Say,
All right.
she's got a song that we'll do later. I'm going to talk her into. It's really sweet, and I'm going to sing it with her.
I can't sing, but I went when I was a little girl. I used to take myself to different churches, and I was about 10, and I was this little fat girl, but I started going to the Nazarene church. It was a pretty big church, and this is where people can have such an impression on children. And I don't know if they knew about what was going on in my home, but the minister, Sister Keaton, took a liking to me, and she asked me to sing a special at church in front of, on Sunday morning, and I can't carry a tune, but it was called It Is No Secret, and I found out after I moved to Abilene, it was written by a man from Abilene. So Misty will be singing it for you one day, and I will hum along. I do not sing, but she's the singer. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions or comments, just send them, Tennie at shadesofhope.com. And I'll be glad to answer any question that I can or make a referral. If I can't answer it, I will find the answer for you.
Or Messenger.
Yeah, that
She's
private
on
messenger.
Facebook.
Yeah, I'm
so
on
send her a
Facebook.
message.
She's taught me about Facebook. So, all righty, have a good rest of the day, and I love all of you. Thanks for being with us.